Hello and thank you for joining us. You're listening to a We Do Talk with David Jaques. Anyone that follows this channel will know that health and fitness is something that's very important to me, both physical fitness and mental health. And it's a great honor for me and a great opportunity to have somebody who can talk a little bit about both, but particularly physical fitness. So it's a great pleasure to be joined today by James Ward, who is a certified personal trainer and able to join me in person. So James, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
I understand that fitness is something that's always been an important thing in your life ever since you were a child, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Started off really early in life. In fact, if you were in America, we used to have the presidential fitness. I think that was started by Arnold Schwarzenegger back somewhere in the 1980s.
Okay. When he was governor of California.
Yes, when he was. Well, this is actually way before
right.
that. Yeah, he was actually on the presidential council at the time.
Yeah.
I forgot which president. Probably, I guess that must have been
Reagan, maybe?
May have been Reagan. Yeah. So he was on the Presidential Council for Exercise, and he actually started a program nationwide that I actually joined into, and that's how I got into physical fitness. He would do, push-up tests and sit-up tests and that type of thing. And so I helped, administer that and actually got involved in physical education at a pretty young age. Youngest maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you ever involved in helping out with teaching fitness at all, or was it just something you enjoyed doing yourself?
Yeah, I started, with that program. By the time I was 13 and 14, I actually started helping, teaching and getting young kids, involved in fitness and
Right.
and that type of thing. So it was along with other, physical education teachers and that type of thing. But I was just one of the students that was mainly helping along at that point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I got my first love. And that in sports, of course.
Right, yeah. So fast forward several years, here you are today, and you're a freelance personal trainer, you work on your own, and that all came about because of this horrific thing called the COVID pandemic,
Yeah.
which hit us about, 2.5 years ago now, so it's September of 2022 right now. And I first knew you when you were a personal trainer at one of the local gyms.
Yeah.
And everything got shut down, and did they basically say, goodbye, we don't need you?
Yeah, we didn't know the short answer of it. I suspect it. I kind of felt that there was a shift going on. I'm not exactly sure why I felt that, but I've been doing it for a long time. At that point, I had been at the company for 10 years. And I remember when the doors shut, we weren't really sure if we were going to come back.
Yeah.
Some of us thought, we were going to come back eventually, but we really didn't know. And so for the first few months, we were just kind of hanging on and waiting to see if we were going to come back and open back with the gym during the pandemic. And of course, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that happened. So slowly I started to understand that things were changing. And eventually then one day they, I guess, put us out of our misery and told us that they officially weren't coming back. But there was still a little bit of hint that we might come back.
Yeah.
But I had made my decision that I was going to move on and move forward and do something different.
Good.
Yeah.
So you just decided to pretty much do the same job, but do it with...
Yeah. I had always done a little bit of training, outside of the gyms and stuff. So I felt pretty comfortable, training in home and in person. And in the area, I've been working in the area of, Palo Alto area for years. Right. And one day, when I was officially let go, I realized, I felt pretty bad about it, but I woke up the next morning and I said, well, wow, this is an opportunity. I have contacts, people that I've been training with and, relationships, such as yourself. And so, I sat down with my wife and sent out, text messages and emails and contacted people and told them that was available and got a great response back. And, I've been, never looked back after that. So far. Yeah.
So, the opportunity must have been there because the people, the clients at the gym were as displaced as you were because,
correct.
People that were used to going there 3 times a week, every day, whatever, once a week, however often, the gym got shut down
Yeah.
and shut down for months. And nobody knew whether this was going to be for a week or two or whether it was going to be for longer. And then as they started opening up again, I remember you had to have a reservation because
Right.
they only let a certain limited number of people in. Whereas you didn't have constraints like that. You could pretty much work with whoever you want.
Yeah, and at that point, that was the opportunity, and also there was a shift going on with fitness too. And quite frankly, it probably would have happened even without the pandemic. So I think the pandemic shifted that a little further. I think we all knew that people were doing things online more and more, and needed to have that as a tool. People were traveling and working in multiple different places, so I was able to give a little bit more availability, because people were traveling and they needed to be able to train, not just in a gym, but in several different locations, and doing online allowed me to do that. So,
And how are you doing that? Is it all on Zoom, or do you do anything in person these days?
No, I actually do in-home as well as doing online. So I kind of look at the online training as a tool, and some people really love that too, because they're busy. And this gives them the opportunity to train a little more frequently, but also doing, in-home,
Right.
As well too. So I do both.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm open to, doing things in the future. I kind of didn't see anything as limiting, and see it more as a opportunity and opening. And I don't really know what the complete future is going to be, but I know it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
So, at that point, I felt like I was just going to leave things a little bit more open and not so limited.
Yeah. And I think not just in your work, which is obviously it was work that you were doing with physically in contact with people, and you're able to take that online and do it that way. But many other people are doing many other jobs that we once thought would only really be done in person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, there's definitely been some benefits to online training. And again, I still do the in-home training as well. But, a couple of, obviously the kinetic touching and physically putting people in the right position is a little different. So most of the time when I spin in-home, I concentrate on those things.
Right.
But the online or Zoom training, you do get a little bit more concentration level at that point, because it's really just you and the camera. There's less distractions going on, which I initially probably would have thought it would have been the other way around, but you're able to give a really good quick session that's a little bit more concentrated, especially if you've worked with the client before.
Right. How many clients do you work with typically?
Well, see, right now, probably about 30 hours a week. So I have some classes and that type of stuff. So it's about 30 to 35 hours a week. At the gym, I was doing up to 50 to 60 hours, at times, but I've kind of scaled that back a little later here in my career. Just keep it around the 30. It's enough.
That's pretty much full time. I always used to say in the consulting world that if I could bill a client for 5 hours a day, I was working full time.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of other stuff I had to do. So
Right. And that's basically it. Yeah, exactly. And it's just sometimes I have to work a little more hours because it's seasonal and the client needs it. So basically, you might see me at times working 40 hours a week after January, February, and March. And then towards the summer, you'll see me maybe scale it back, and it kind of averages around that 30 to 35 hours.
Yeah. Great. So, James, you've also served in the military for a chunk of your life. Would you tell us a little about that time?
Yeah. So I was a Marine for 8 years. Okay. Went straight out of high school.
Did you deploy overseas?
I did. Yeah. I actually deployed. First deployment was in Okinawa, Japan. And I was there. I was actually stationed there, which is a little different than being deployed. So first stationed, that was actually physically my home, which was a great opportunity. At age 18, the first time I ever left from home was actually Okinawa, Japan, pre-technology or any of that. So I thought I did get a really good opportunity to see a different world and really, kind of change my life initially. From by the time I was 21, almost 21, excuse me, almost 22 years old is when I actually came back to the States and was stationed at that point in Camp Pendleton, and 18 months later went right back over to Okinawa and Korea, but this time I was stationed on a ship, which was a little different, so less time in each port.
Did you see any combat at all? Or?
Yeah, I was with Desert Storm. We actually did, in terms of combat, that's a kind of a hard question to answer because I actually did have some skirmishes when I was in the Philippines as well. So in terms of people potentially shooting at Marines, I think that happens a lot more frequently than we think. Yeah. And it's not maybe quite as noteworthy as people may think in terms of like press and everything. But I remember prior to the first Desert Storm, us having issues and me being, actually in harm's way in the Philippines before I ever officially went to war. In fact, I actually think the war was actually less of a conflict than during my peacetime. So
really?
That made it kind of weird.
Yeah. It's really ironic for sure. But
that's the Marine Corps. It's like, you don't necessarily have to be at war in order to have any issues. You know,
So, back on the theme of fitness, obviously in the military and the Marine Corps, there's a need for everybody to be physically fit. So was there training regimens? Was there focused training? Did you do stuff on your own?
Well, yeah. Definitely the training was there in boot camp, and they set that foundation from the get-go. It's probably just the mentality of the Marine Corps. I learned early on, we didn't look at fitness as a punishment like you see in movies, and it really was kind of a reward. And I remember probably the best part of the Marine Corps that I can remember was us going on long runs. It was usually a pretty festive time. Certainly nobody's shooting at you at that point or anything like that. There's nothing bad happening. It's usually a good time when you're actually having fitness. So these were positive and fun times.
Well, you always have to be prepared because you never know when you're going to have to go out and need that physical agility and be able to do things.
Yeah, that would be the last thing that you want to worry about. So definitely check that box for sure at that point.
Yeah. So, James, one thing I'd like to ask you, I've chatted to a couple of people on this channel about transition of life out of the military to civilian life. And everyone has a different story. How was that for you? Was it an easy transition? Was it challenging for you to do that?
No, not easy. I think I got really fortunate by actually going to college and being able to go to a college. I went to the University of Pacific and being able to kind of get a second start. I was still young at that point, although some of my friends actually called me the old guy, even though I was only in my early 20s at this point, or mid 20s. But it was a challenging transition for sure. But I think that me, going to a school and being able to kind of get away from, real life and have this other institution in college and live on campus, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of switch out of that military role a little bit. But always transitioning, even a little bit today. There's some things, it's 8 years in the Marine Corps. Especially at such an early age. Yeah, there are going to be things that I'm never going to change, and I understand that, and that's just the way it is. I think I've softened some of those things over the years and made some transitions, and it was challenging, but at the same time, there are certain things that I'm not going to try to change because it's who I am at this point for sure. Yeah. So,
and what did you study at college?
Sports science, and also business management. So sport medicine, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, right above you is a little logo here of Nike by Eugene, which is where my daughter went to University of Oregon, which was where Nike was founded. So
sure, absolutely,
something that's fairly close to my heart.
Yeah.
So what was your first job after you graduated? What did you go into?
Well, I worked for MGM Grand. Personal training wasn't really a business yet. It wasn't something that most people were making a living doing. And at some point, I just got wind that there was an opportunity to work in the fitness industry. And the pay wasn't very good, but I was getting young and,
Yeah.
Ready to do it. And I kind of jumped, with both feet in and, again, never looked back. Moved out here to this area in Los Altos, California. And then, the rest is history, I guess.
Great. And I know that sports are very important to you. I'm a skier. I know you're a snowboarder, so we both love snow sports. And
snowboarder and surfer. It's something that, I have a lot of passion for, surfing and snowboarding. It keeps me busy, and that's really kind of helped me kind of transition into, stuff from like the military and stuff like that, especially the surfing portion of it.
Yeah.
And it's been a blessing for sure. Yeah.
Do you play any other sports actively now?
No, it's pretty much those two things. I'm open to doing a lot of, sports and stuff like that. But, just with my current age, being 54, it's a bit hard to play some of the other sports because of the likelihood of injury. But, just mainly the surfing. I surf about 3-4 times a week, and snowboard in the winter, doing back and forth. And between those two, it keeps me busy, and the weight training in between. That's pretty much it. But, I've done everything from pick up basketball every now and then, racquetball, pickleball. I played softball the other day, but not something that I do frequently. Yeah.
So one thing is, I think I'm a marathon runner. I've run 26 marathons. Haven't done one in a number of years, and would still like to do another one again someday.
Sure.
But so I've been doing that pretty much most of my adult life. I ran my first marathon when I was in my early 20s. And I learned from books and magazines, and I taught myself a technique that worked for me. But it wasn't until about 15 years ago that I actually hired a coach. And even though I was an experienced person, and I knew what I was doing and I knew what worked for me, I still learnt things from the coach. So it's always worth tapping the knowledge base of somebody that really understands this stuff.
Sure.
And would you find the same thing with personal training? People kind of do their own thing and they could still learn more if they were to contact somebody such as yourself?
Oh, absolutely. You mean me learning from another, because I have a trainer as well.
Oh, both that and the client learning from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Professional athletes have coaching. So if you're able to actually get a coach, I would definitely recommend it. I've always, if you're just talking about the surfing and snowboarding, one of the things that has really helped me is the ability to be able to learn and use that skill, which I started with the Marine Corps, and I just kind of used that same process in training and being able to learn, really just kind of tap in to actually find out what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, and key points that I'm really trying to learn about. For example, in the surfing, the kind of the why you're doing what you're doing is really important. You really have to kind of tap into that, and then just understanding that it takes a village in order for you to actually be able to do these things. So getting relationships and talking to people who know more than you do is always really helpful.
And another thing which I'm a great believer in, it's a little bit of a cliche, but healthy mind, healthy body. And I do think that the two are very connected.
Yeah.
And from my personal experience, I've found that having had to deal with mental health issues throughout my life, using physical fitness really has been a great tool for me to maintain that mental stability, because maybe a little bit intense, but when you're training for a marathon, you don't do much else. You do your training and you sleep and you work. I always used to find that the 6 months or so I was training for a marathon every year, I'd be so focused, and I'm focused on something so positive, that it would really keep me not just physically fit, would keep me so mentally fit as well.
Yeah. There's a chemistry makeup there too that actually helps with endorphins and working out, that makes you feel better. And when I go out surfing, for example, before I actually paddle out, I always kind of laugh and say, check on how I'm feeling throughout the day, about if I'm able to do X, Y, and Z in my life, and the tasks that seem just to be, mounting up, that I'm not able to keep up with this, like the pandemic and all this kind of stuff that you would hear. You turn on the news, everything seems like,
the world is coming to an end.
It seems like it's just like a never-ending battle. But it's interesting, after even though I know that I'm going out surfing, it's funny to me that when I come out, at the end of it, I at very least have a different mindset about what I'm actually, doing during the day, which is why I like to work out in the morning, because it sets the tone for the day. So
yeah. So James, one last thing I'd like to ask you. It has to do with freelance work and working on your own and taking that on. And We Do, it's going to be a platform that will support freelancers, independent workers, performers, anybody that's working independently. So if somebody is faced with either a job loss or this thought that I'm working for a corporation, I could do better on my own, what type of advice would you give someone who is contemplating going out and doing their own thing? What are the sort of things you should look for?
It's, for me, it's always been the same thing, is just to get started. The likelihood of everything being lined up for you perfectly is just not going to happen. And I've always thought just jumping in and actually doing it, and even if just doing just a little bit of a task, again, it just really opens up doors that you think you might not have thought, would have happened before. So I would say just get out there, go ahead and test the waters a little bit. It doesn't always have to be so extreme. There's hybrid approaches to things, it doesn't have to be either or, perhaps if you're worried about income and maybe you could do something part-time, for example, and that part-time could turn into something more full-time, and it could make it a lot easier for your decision in the future. So I would say that's my advice, is just get started.
Well, what you're talking about is the concept what I call the side hustle, of somebody who might be employed but has an idea for something else. And especially in these days of remote work, if you're not spending a couple of hours a day commuting to work, to an office or wherever, then maybe try spending a little bit of time on something and seeing how it goes. Start small.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am. And it does seem like it's a good time for that right now. In terms of what the change and how the world's changed a little bit. Like you said, people do have a little more time. So, and again, it's that exercising that muscle, that triumph over procrastination of just getting something started, and then kind of lead yourself and see if you can just build up from there. And that's it's
great. So what's in the future for you? Are you going to continue doing this? Is there anything else you think you might do?
Well, I've dabbled a little bit of doing some films, so I would like to get back to doing that just on the amateur side. I made a small film, and I probably think that I would go back to doing what I know and just do more on the fitness side of it. So right now, that, and recently over the pandemic, did another certification and became a strength coach. So that strength coach is a little bit more on the athletic side, and so I was involved with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, which is a really top-notch certification. So I did that over the pandemic, and it really helped me learn even more about my profession. So I'm really excited about different opportunities and just kind of reaching out and kind of checking things out and seeing if there's something that's going to be a little different than what I've done in the past. So right now I'm just kind of open.
Well, a few years ago I never thought I would be doing something like this.
Exactly.
And also my message to everyone is it's never too late. I hear people who are younger than me saying, I think I might be too old to get into something different. I don't think you are. Trying new ventures, trying new things, and challenging yourself to go out and try something new, to me, is something that is a life journey. You should never stop doing it. James, thanks so much for coming over. And this is great to hear your perspective on things. And I wish you every success for the future. And, I know that we'll be still talking.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed listening to James here and listening to this talk. Please leave your comments below, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time. We upload a We Do Talk every week, so if you enjoyed this one, please subscribe and leave your comments below.